Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience in waiting. We have a full subcommittee here, and I want to welcome you all to our last Sub-3 meeting of this session. We'll start with a roll call.
Bloom?
Here.
Gordon? Bigelow? Patterson? Williams?
Here.
All right, all five here. We'll begin with our agenda, Part 1, starting with the vote-only calendar. My understanding is there's been a request for a roll call vote on Issue 1, a separate roll call vote. Is there a motion either on that item or...
I'll move.
For the separate roll call vote on item 1.
So you're moving item 1.
No, you need to do that.
Okay. So you're moving item 2 and 3.
I'll move items 2 and 3.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll vote on that.
Thank you.
Bloom?
Aye.
Bigelow?
Aye.
Gordon?
Aye.
Patterson? Williams?
Aye.
Now on Issue 1, perhaps Mr. Gordon or
Move item 1.
Mr. Williams.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Bloom?
Aye.
Bigelow?
No.
Gordon?
Aye.
Patterson? Williams?
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes the vote-only calendar. Our first item to be heard is the cap-and-trade expenditure plan. Good morning. I think Department of Finance is prepared to provide us with some report on the cap-and-trade.
Yes, thank you, Matt Almy, Department of Finance. In terms of the agenda item, we appreciate the subcommittee's recommended approval of most of the administration's cap-and-trade expenditure plan, as well as the recommended approval of the basic policy framework of the cap-and-trade package. While there are a few differences, the staff comments in the agenda point out that the details of the cap-and-trade expenditure plan will be subject to negotiation in the final budget package. And we look forward to future discussion in conference committee. The only general concern we'd like to point out is that in general we are concerned about directing cap-and-trade funds to specific projects or to specific local areas rather than allocating funds through a competitive process.
Thank you. Does LAO have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ross Brown with the LAO. The issue of cap and trade was heard in a previous hearing. I think I won't go over sort of a lot of our comments and testimony on cap and trade other than we think it's important for the legislature to consider sort of these programs in the context of the larger climate change policy strategy that the state has. And it's particularly important moving forward to try to ensure the administration is providing good information on the outcomes of these various programs and perhaps thinking about looking to outside expertise to help evaluate the effectiveness of the programs and what outcomes are being achieved. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. The cap and trade expenditure plan that's proposed in our subcommittee budget this morning is something that takes into consideration the fact something we all know, and that is that negotiations are now going to take place. And so what it really does is it provides feedback to that will be helpful in moving those negotiations forward. The reality is that the cap and trade expenditure plan has been evolving over several years now. We've had not just the hearings that we've had this year, but hearings that have taken place over the lifetime of the program that all inform an evolving approach to cap and trade. So I think that's why you see most of the governor's priorities being supported and some additional items and some differences in the plan as proposed by the governor being presented here today. But this proposal that we have before us today tees up what we think ought to be the Assembly's priorities. It does make some significant changes and recommendations to changes in programs, and those are laid out, I think, in sufficient detail in the staff report, and I needn't repeat them. Are there any comments on this item from the from others on the dais? Members, we'll hear from the public on this item. I'd like to ask members of the public. I know there's a number of you who want to be heard on this item, to try and keep your comments concise. To remember that we have had prior hearings on this, so if you're repeating something that you've already given us feedback on, try to keep that as short as possible. And if somebody in front of you makes a point, you can easily me too that. We don't need to hear it multiple times. The only other thing I'd add about the cap and trade budget is that it is our intention to have a plan in place by the adoption of the final budget. I personally don't think it serves us well to, as we did last year, stretch this out again into August or perhaps even longer. So I think, from my perspective, it's important that we have a goal of adopting a plan that then takes us forward into the upcoming budget cycle.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Ronnie Verdugo here with the League of California Cities. We just want to emphasize that we, that we support the governor's, at a minimum, level of investment for of cap and trade dollars for transit, intercity rail, and complete streets, which is about $500 million cap and trade money for transportation. So. And I'm also here on behalf of the Fix Our Roads Coalition, which is the county's business and labor folks. So thank you.
Good morning, Teresa Blue with Californians Against Waste. We strongly support the $100 million proposed budget allocation for CalRecycle's waste diversion projects. In addition to being highly oversubscribed, CalRecycle's programs are ranked among one of the most cost-effective method in terms of dollars spent per GHG. So we think it's clear that for the funding, that it's not only a worthwhile investment, but it's also critical in achieving the goals of AB 32. Thank you so much.
Bill McGavin with the Coalition for Clean Air. I'll just make my two most important points. The first is to stress the importance of what the chairman said, that we really need to get this done this year, and that's more important than anything. So we really commend the subcommittee for coming forward with this proposal. And the second is to support the redirection of $100 million from low carbon roads to active transportation program. Very wise. You're taking from something that was very ill-defined and putting it into an existing program that is successful and a great way to promote health and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Jolene Navoris on behalf of the urban counties of California, also here testifying on behalf of the California State Association of Counties in support of the $100 million for the local climate plan, which you talk about in the chart, which is specifically called the Transformational Climate Communities Program, which helps local governments to give them funding and adjust GHG at the local level. We're very much in support of that allocation. Thank you.
Good morning. Kula Koenig with the American Heart Association, American Stroke Association. Just echoing support with the staff's recommendation to redirect $100 million from the low carbon road to the active transportation program. Thank you.
Kimberly Chen from the California Pan-Ethnic Health Network, one online, myself with my colleague from the American Heart Association. The active transportation program is a great way to reduce greenhouse gas reductions, and it's highly oversubscribed, so support the subcommittee's proposal on that item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Christopher Castrillo on behalf of the California Green Business Network here in support of the $1 million appropriation for the Green Small Business Program. Just want to thank you, your staff, obviously members of this committee, for all the work in getting this program out there, and we look forward to working on you further to get us across the finish line. So thank you so much.
Good morning, and thank you. Joshua Stark with Transform. I wanted to echo the comments of Mr. McGavern, my colleagues with Active Transportation, thanking you for the $100 million to the ATP rather than to a new and undefined low-carbon roads program. Would also ask that you consider the $400 million to transit capital to instead be split to include transit operations, including a transit pass program for K through 12 students and community college and public university students. Thank you.
Good morning. Chuck Mills on behalf of California Relief solely. First, just to echo the comments of Mr. Stark and Mr. McGavern related to transit passes and low-carbon roads and switching that to active transportation. And then myself on behalf of California Relief and the Pacific Trust, thank you, Pacific Forest Trust, thanking you for the allocations to the suite of natural resources. Many of you have received this letter that's signed by 100 organizations, very clearly stating that we should not sacrifice any natural resource allocations or in augmentations at expense of the others. So thank you very much.
Wendy Alfson with California Walks. I want to echo my predecessors in supporting the allocation to active transportation instead of low carbon roads, and to the split to transit operations and student passes. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. Wendy Ritterbush with the Association of California Water Agencies. We want to give a heartfelt thank you to the $150 million that's going to go towards forest restoration and reforestation, as well as the funding that's going to go to tree mortality. That's really, really important, and we really appreciate your efforts.
Good morning, Stacy Heaton with the Rural County Representatives of California. We are here in support today of the Assembly proposal, and particularly the $150 million for forest health and resilience programs and the $100 million to Cal Recycle. The money for forest health is extremely important, especially in light of the 29 million dead trees we have out there due to the tree mortality problem. And we feel that, and we know that the only way this is going to get done is through funding and getting out there and making the forest healthy. So we are in full support of this proposal today. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members. Jeannie Wardweller with the California Bicycle Coalition, also here today on behalf of PolicyLink and the Safe Routes to School National Partnership. Just want to strongly support the allocation of the active transportation program, as my colleagues have said, and also support splitting the transit capital funds to operations and transit passes. Thank you.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Amy Vanderwalker, co-director of the California Environmental Justice Alliance. Thank you for putting together this plan. We're encouraged to see support for the transformative climate communities at $100 million. In this proposal, we urge you to consider supporting the program at a level of $250 million. That way it would reach more communities, and this is exactly the kind of innovative, integrated climate project that the state needs and communities across California need. And we also urge you to consider allocating all of the money competitively. Thank you.
Good morning, Alvaro Sanchez with the Green Lining Institute, Environmental Equity Director. Here in support of the Transformative Climate Communities program, echoing my colleagues' comments. Increasing the amount of resources for that program is really critical in order to achieve the type of transformation we want to see in many communities throughout the state. So encourage you to think about increasing the funding for that program, and also encourage you to think about making it a true competitive program so that more communities have access to the funds. I also want to stress for the health of these programs, needing to actually allocate the money and avoid the issues we had with this funding, the discretionary funding from last year. So definitely encourage you to take action on this and allow communities to benefit from the climate investments that they so desperately need. Thank you.
Good morning, Danielle Lynch. Thank you for this proposal and for the opportunity to comment. I have two main comments today. The first of which, on behalf of the Fresno Opportunities Commission, is on the money going towards energy efficiency to CSD. We are concerned that this kind of drastic cut in their funding will not result in us meeting our goals based on the SB 535 mandates in DACs, CSD being the only agency that's working specifically and solely on this DAC population. So we are concerned about this cut. However, if there is a cut to the funding for this program, we would hope that it would allow for both weatherization and solar installations to still occur, as both of these types of projects are really important to these low-income communities. My second comment on behalf of the California Association of Local Conservation Corps has to do with the Conservation Corps' energy efficiency program. We do want to clarify and just make sure that you're all aware of the great history that the CCC and the state certified local conservation corps have working to ensure state coverage for very important populations throughout the state of California and towards this very important at-risk population that is able to provide these services throughout the state. And we would urge you to make sure that the eligibility criteria for this program includes both the California Conservation Corps and the state certified community conservation corps. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Bloom and members. Rico Mastrodonato at the Trust for Public Land. I first want to thank you very much for the investment to the active transportation program. We think that's very important, and would also ask that you strongly consider augmenting the TCC and the urban greening program, which we believe both hit a sweet spot of direct GHG reductions and considerable co-benefits around human health, climate resiliency, et cetera. So thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Chelsea Tu. I'm a staff attorney with Public Advocates. We'd like to echo our colleagues' support and thank you for allocating more money for active transportation. And we also echo our colleagues' request to transfer money currently proposed for transit intercity rail capital to be transferred to transit operations and transit passes that our students and low-income communities of color rely on. Thank you.
Good morning, Juan Altamirano on behalf of Audubon, California. We want to thank you for the allocation to the natural resources sector. We certainly appreciate it, specifically to the wetlands and mountain meadows section. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members. Katrina Robinson on behalf of California Trout, the Land Trust of Santa Cruz County, the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust, and the Carbon Cycle Institute. I want to thank you today for all the investments in the natural and working lands, especially for the $60 million going to wetlands and watershed restoration and to the $20 million for healthy soils. Both of these programs will ensure that we're not just reducing emissions, but that we're actually sequestering more atmospheric carbon down in our soils. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Chair and members. Andrew Shane from the California Association of Food Banks. Want to thank you and show support for the $100 million for waste diversion for CalRecycle. As the state implements the 1826 diversion rules, we're doing a phenomenal job in trying to remove food from the landfills, which obviously causes methane, a very powerful pollutant. But we need to have these grant programs to have the infrastructure capacity in the rescue and prevention community to actually take that food and make sure people can eat it. Thank you.
Good morning, Pablo Garza with the Nature Conservancy. And first off, I want to echo what others have said. We think it's really important to do a complete expenditure plan this year. So we appreciate you putting a proposal out there. And I just want to say we support the proposal, and we think we appreciate the robust role for natural and working lands contained in there. So thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Doug Houston on behalf of the Sierra Business Council. I stand here in behalf of the council in strong support of the governor's proposed $150 million for the Healthy Forest Program. Thanks very much.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Brian White here on behalf of the California Licensed Foresters Association and the Forest Landowners of California, also in support of the $150 million for the Healthy Forest Program. We encourage the Department of Forestry and the Air Resources Board to work closely together to make sure that those funds are spent to address not only the climate benefits but also the amount of fuel that still is in the forest to reduce those projects and the support for biomass. Also here on behalf of the Western United Dairymen and encouraging the legislature to reconsider the amount of funding that's needed for the Dairy Digester Program. $35 million is a start, but it's woefully short of what's needed to address the methane and short-lived climate pollutants. There are a suite of technologies out there that dairy operators could use, and $35 million is just woefully short. So we ask you to reconsider that. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Matt Milan on behalf of the California Compost Coalition. I want to thank you for your support for the funding for the $100 million for CalRecycle.
Good morning. Kim Stein on behalf of the California Climate and Ag Network. We want to thank you for support for the funding for healthy soils as well as ag water efficiency. We think this will further incentivize climate-smart agriculture. Thank you.
Hi, Kathy Van Austin, MVM Strategy Group, representing United Airlines. Just for the record, want to mention our the work that we've been doing to bring aviation fuels, renewable aviation fuels, to California with some of our partners, Altair, located down in Paramount. We're particularly interested in the Low Carbon Incentive Fund. We've been asking for the inclusion of aviation fuels in that fund, of renewable aviation fuels in that fund. So we've been talking with members of the Senate, the Assembly, and the administration. Just would like to put it on the record today that we have a vital interest in this. We think we can bring biojet fuel to California. We'd be the first in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this item is now before us. Is there any discussion or a motion?
Move approval of the staff recommended adjustments to the governor's proposal.
Second.
Thank you. Let's move to a vote.
Bloom?
Aye.
Bigelow? No. Gordon?
Aye.
Patterson? Aye. Williams?
Aye.
Thank you. Issue number 2, the Public Utilities Commission service quality issue.